Hello, my name is Mark and welcome to I Am Organic Gardening. I'm located in Zone 7 in the state of New Jersey. I also have a 22-acre organic farm. I'm wearing glasses today because I gave myself a black eye changing farm equipment. Farming is quite dangerous and hazardous to farmers. It was a stupid mistake on my part. I've done it several times. I haven't learned, I guess, but I gave myself a pretty good black eye. So today I want to talk about those amazing tomato plants. Everybody loves tomatoes. So I want to just give you one important factor to just stay with you on this about what a tomato plant really wants to. If that tomato plant could talk to you, what would it be saying all the time as its requirement that it wants from you? Well, there's again two things, and in my other video I talked about that 96% of any plants that you grow in your garden is a combination of carbon and water. So we're going to go over something just so simple like water and what you can do for your tomato plant besides just watering it to keep that moisture in the ground. Here we're looking at is my tomato plant in the beginning of the row that I have planted in front of a cattle panel trellis. I use a cattle panel trellis because I have a lot of wind on my farm and I need something strong and sturdy. Plus I've been planting tomatoes in this area. I believe this is the 5th year now. I planted these 10 days ago. What I was waiting for, and here's a key thing, when you plant your tomato plants from either a nursery you're buying them from or you're growing inside your own house, sometimes when you put them out in the garden and they might change color, they might get purple leaves, the leaves might curl up. That is, the leaf curling is due to stress, and also the purple color is, a lot of it is, let's say an easy answer is that it's not bringing enough phosphorus into the plant. But what it really is soil temperature. Soil temperature is a key thing, and I'll show you later on. I have a soil probe that I will show you what the temperature is. So I was waiting to plant my tomato plants, so the temperature of the soil, and I take it for 2 days in a row or maybe 3 days in a row before I plant my tomato plants so they can adjust. Because when you go from the inside of the house, and that's about 65 to 70 degrees, you're going to be putting them in soil that's about 60 degrees. So for the next 2 weeks after that tomato plant that you see here, that will just sit there for probably, again, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks before it even does anything. Now I plant my tomato plants nice and small. I don't let them get large, and I don't let them get flowers on them. And if they do get flowers on them, I remove the flowers prior to plant. Back up a little bit. So what it is, you can see that I have leaf mold on the ground. I will take that leaf mold. Let me get in front of the tomato plant here. It's pretty interesting. Leaf mold, or leaves, it doesn't have to become mold yet. What I just do is I push back the leaf mold. I get down to my soil down below here. Bring back these leaves from the soil. You want to get down to real soil. My soil is a mixture of sand, silt, and clay. That's real soil. Now, a lot of people, I'm going to be using the word or terminology, a soilless mix. That is pretty much peat moss and vermiculite or compost. That reacts differently than regular soil of sand, silt, and clay, which I'm going to go over. And that's the most important thing that I want to share with you today, is the difference between sand, silt, and clay, and also soilless mix. A lot of people call it potting soil. The word soil should not be included in that name. It's totally something different. So what I want to show you is what my soil looks like. This is clay soil where I am in the state of New Jersey. We're going to just remove this from the top, and I'll show you. We're just going to go in the ground here with a shovel and just pick up a big clog of this. Wow. Might get some weed roots in here. This is my soil. I'll bring it into the light more. And now you can see here we have my soil. And this was clay soil. Now I have my leaf mold on top, which I don't do anything except pile leaves about maybe say 8 to 12 inches in the fall on top of the soil. And again, I move this leaf mold on top, and that's holding moisture in there. That's what you want. You want to retain moisture for your tomato plants. And I just saw a worm in here, but I have plenty of worms eating or coming up out of the ground to eat that leaf mold and bring it back down in the soil for me so I don't have to till. Now I just saw a worm in here. So what I want to do also too is look in here. There we are. We have 2 worms, it looks like. One small one and one large one. So what that's going on there, in there, is guess what? And that's my key thing. When you water, you also, your soil breathes. Your soil wants oxygen. So that worm and that wormhole is bringing oxygen down your soil. So this is a good thing by any means. Now I want to refer to, a lot of people use soilless mix to grow tomatoes in. Tomatoes is probably the only plant that's very forgiving to grow in any type of condition. So you can see here, now what I want my soil, my sand and the clay, is to bring oxygen down. Your soil breathes. Your soil breathes, that's correct. Every time you water, you're putting oxygen back in the soil. Now water, H2O, has oxygen, but also too, when you water, you're bringing water down and draining into your soil, but it's also pulling in oxygen too, not just the oxygen in the water, but oxygen in the air. It's pulling it down through that wormhole. It's like filling up your sink with water and pulling the plug out, and that water goes down, but it's also bringing the oxygen and pressure of the air back in the soil. Now if you really want to get technical, there's low fronts and there's high fronts, or low pressure and high pressure in the air, and that does the same thing about getting oxygen in your soil. So we want oxygen to go into our soil because that is just making a healthy plant. The top of the tomato plant creates oxygen. It brings in carbon dioxide underneath the leaves and then generates out oxygen on the top of the plant. But how do we get oxygen down in the roots? That is by watering and also by high pressure and low pressure in the atmosphere. But that soil has to be open. It has to enjoy the nature's process of sand, silt, and clay of going down there. Now that's why you usually have perlite and vermiculite in your soilless mixes. You want to get oxygen there. You want the water to go down deep. The only problem you're having with something in potting mix or soilless mix is that it gets too wet sometimes and you'll cause root rot. And that's the problem. In the ground, unless you have really compacted soil, you will not ever get root rot. And that tomato plant here wants everything from you to water it at least once a day. When you're growing in real soil, you can never overwater your tomato plants. And I know that's crazy, and a lot of people say whatever too, because they're comparing it to soilless mixes. Soilless mixes, if you overwater, you will get root rot, and you don't have oxygen in the soil, and that will cause the problem. That's the main problem in soilless mixes. So let's talk about soil temperature. I want to see that this is on. Yes, it is. This is my probe here. We'll stick it back in the ground. It doesn't take too long to read, but give it a minute or two. So let's talk about a couple of things here. The soil temperature of tomato plants, the root system in the ground temperature should be anywhere from 60 to 80 degrees, maybe as high as 85, but you don't want that temperature to get above 85 degrees, then the roots won't work properly. And to maintain that below 85 degrees, no matter where you live, you can use mulch. And mulch is a key thing because we're going to keep that soil, one, is cool, but also we're not going to let that soil evaporate all that water, which is the water is about 45% of that plant that's growing in front of you here. It's a beautiful thing. Water is life, and it keeps all the microbes alive also in the soil too, and the worms and everything that decomposes, the leaf litter on top. It just is endless how our soil works. It's a beautiful, amazing thing that nature has done. So we're in the ground here for at least a minute, and let's see if I can take it out. And you can see here it's about 67.5 degrees. awesome. So I know that my roots of my tomato plants are growing nicely. If you put your tomato plants outside early in the season below 60 degrees, they will just sit there for a few weeks before they start growing. Also too, when a tomato plant gets transferred into the ground or transplanted, that this beautiful plant will also not grow top growth, and you might turn yellow or purple because that's because of the soil temperature. The soil temperature is not usually above 60 degrees, and that will also cause it too. I want to know where you can get something like this soil temperature gauge. I'm not selling it, but I just get this off of Amazon. They ship pretty quickly and they're relatively inexpensive. But this is a good gauge that you should check in your raised beds or soil or anything that's going on, even when you're growing say tomato seedlings inside or any seed inside. Your soil temperature is also key. Whether you're using a heating mat, you should check it properly to make sure you have the right soil temperature for germination. Let's talk about watering. That's our key point of this video, is how much water we should give our tomato plants. Again, you can't over water plants that grow in soil. Now, soil is sand, silt, and clay, but you should be concerned about when you grow it in a soilless mix. Coconut coir, peat moss with vermiculite, even compost, because it doesn't drain properly. And you can see how dry it is in the sunlight here before I water it. And I'll just give you a couple key things in a little bit when I water it, what to look for. But also I want to improve. If you have a soilless mix, I know this is quite heavy material. Again, that's why you add perlite or vermiculite in there. But also what I've seen in results and also scientific evidence and things to go forward that these people know about that have made this soilless mix being sold to you. The only reason they don't do it, but you should add sand to that, because I have sand in my soil. You might see a lot of clay in there, but it's mostly about 20 to 30% sand. Sand is quite heavy. They sell them usually in the 60-pound bags, and that's why they don't add sand. And it's a small bag, but it weighs 60 pounds. That's why they don't add sand to your potting mix, because it's more difficult to ship. It's heavier. And also, if you're buying let's say a bag that's 2 cubic feet, you're going to add that extra weight, and people don't want to pick it up because it's too heavy, and it's just bad for the consumer. They want to sell you a product that you're comfortable buying and also lifting. You can see here that on the base of my tomato plant, again, all that ground is very dry. So we're just going to use, let me see here, I have a nice watering wand. Now, you can do anything you wish to make it life easy for you. Now, this is just a small amount of water going in there. I got some air in the hose. Now, I usually water generally around 2 feet circle around the base of the plant. Now you can see that the water is filling up or puddling on top of the soil already. So let's turn this off for a second, and you can watch how quickly that water goes into the soil. That means I'm getting air and oxygen in there, and plus I got a good drainage in my soil. Now we water until we can do that and the water still stays on top. Now, I'm also getting the plant wet. I'm not worried about it. It will dry off. I don't worry about diseases because I have healthy soil. And also, too, I don't know if it's a myth or not, but a lot of people recommend not watering the plant or getting it wet because you'll improve disease, maybe from your area. But I don't believe in that, because I believe that nature, let it rain, and also fog in the morning that we have every morning. That's quite noticeable. See, that soil's still sucking that water down inside it, and now giving that beautiful oxygen to the roots. So I will water until that water stays on top of the soil. Then I know I have it. I have a good, complete, saturated soil. A little bit more, and now it's still going in there. We haven't had rain in probably 2 to 3 weeks now already. But I want to give these tomato plants as much water as they want, and I also want to keep all those organisms alive in that soil. And that's what it is. I know water is expensive, and you have to be very cautious how much fresh water you use, maybe in certain areas. But without water, you don't have a garden, and gardens require lots of watering. And once you keep that soil saturated, then you just recover it with mulch again, and then you should just keep that tomato plant as healthy and happy as much as it wants to be, because it's just full of water, full of oxygen, and again, that soil life is just totally alive. And it's still draining in there. Wow, I'm glad I started watering these plants because they definitely need it. Now again too, I am feeding also the soil around it underneath those leaves of water too, because it might be void already. Here we can slow down now. I can see that the water is finally sitting on top of the soil, and it's finally getting to the point, and it's still going in, but you can see that it just takes a little time and effort, but you have to keep that soil saturated. That was a lot of water going just for one plant. So be cautious, watch, learn on your own garden what you need to do. You're never wasting water. Now I know a lot of people use drip irrigation also too on this beautiful tomato plants or tomato plants in your garden. Now that will slowly drip the water in there, and it lets less evaporation into the air. But you can also use mulch. Again, don't be scared of putting leaves back down around that area or any kind of mulch that you can. Thank you for joining me in the garden today and also on my farm. Now, it's just that basic. Tomato plants are very happy just getting water, and that is just the key point of this video. And they water and soil temperature goes together. Now, and mulch. Don't overcomplicate things in the garden, what you want to do with your tomato plants. They're a fantastic vegetable that gives you lots of produce. Enjoy them. They're great tasting. I can't wait for my first tomato. I'm planting late this year because I believe that I'm going to have a later frost than normal, and I'm not worried about timing. My yields will be the same. So give it a good thumbs up, help out the channel, please subscribe, and happy gardening. And now organic gardening, I will say, is probably the cheapest way to go gardening. A lot of people use too much fertilizer, and I'm not against it whether it's chemical or organic, but you really don't need it. Plant health is all about soil health. Enjoy, and I'll see you again shortly with another video. And thank you so much for watching this one. Have a great day.